Unfortunately, nobody is attending the class, so I would like to record my session. I will I am I would like to take the paper Econ 9, money, banking and financial institution. It is one of the paper included in the final year stream of Indira Gandhi National Open University students. In the given paper, we have to cover 4 blocks. Of these 4 blocks, we have to cover 20 lessons or 20 chapters. Okay. In the session, I would like to cover 5 to 6 sessions. Okay. Let us move to the part. Before going to the part, I will share the screen. First unit, money, natural functions and significance. As we know, we are much bothered about the role of money or the importance of money in our daily life. From the very beginning of life or from the early childhood of our life, we see, we touch and we carry the money. Okay. In our childhood, we may take or we might have taken some coins or some currency notes. By the passage of time, we alone or we along with our parents or we along with our siblings when go to market and we point out some of the items or articles or goods which we would like to consume. After selecting all these goods, the trader or the merchant will say to us, this is the amount that you have to pay for the goods you have selected. After that, we will give money, the currency notes. Okay. Before prevailing the currency notes in our daily life or the currency notes prevailing in our country or around the world, when we look into the history of currency notes, it has undergone for various reforms or various changes. Okay, let us discuss or each stage of its history and everything in detail in our subsequent class. Okay, we move to our unit first, money, natural functions and significance. First of all, we have to clearly understand what is money. Okay. We know price is the exchange value in terms of money. Suppose we went to a market, we go to a market and we demand a soap to the shop or the seller, and he will give the goods or articles, and with it, he will demand to us, this is 10 rupees or this is 12 rupees. Okay, this is the price of such a product. Or all of us or most of us are consuming public or private along with public transportation facilities for our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day life. When we enter into a bus or a train, the bus conductor will demand 8 rupees or 10 rupees or 12 rupees for such and such places. Okay. So this is the price. This is the price. This is the price, not the money. So price is the exchange value in terms of expressed in terms of money. Price is the exchange value. Price and money are ultimately different. Price is not money, money is not price. Or perhaps money is a price. Money is a price, perhaps, but price is not money. Okay. So what is price? What is money? what is exchange rate. Basically, we have to understand all these basic elements. Otherwise, we cannot travel with this segment, or we cannot move to the comprehensive part of this paper. Okay, firstly, what is money? What is money? Okay, money means what we deal in our monetary economy. What we deal in our monetary economy. It can use it freely and it can widely for the settlement of various economic transactions. We are so much accustomed to money now that it is difficult for us to imagine a modern society without money. Can we expect it? Can we imagine? That means a situation where there is no money, there is no currency notes, there is no coins. Okay, we can imagine. Can we imagine that situation? No. Because we have much familiar with money. So it will be very interesting to know why and how this money came into being. Okay, as I already discussed with you, or as I already asked with you. Okay, yes. So money means what we deal in our economic system for the fulfillment of goods and services. When before the coming of money, we or our ancestors have witnessed and familiar with the barter system. When we look into the barter system, we can see a lot of issues in connection with the barter system. Somebody needs wheat and they have cow or goat or cloth. So they give cloth in turn of wheat, and somebody have wheat, but they do not want any cloth. And a person who is having only cloth in such a situation, what he will do to get back wheat? This is the one of the main issue raised in the case of a barter system. But the advent of money, the activity of exchange was carried out through the barter system. Okay, we know barter system means people exchange the goods for another goods. Okay, yes. So when we look into the problems of barter system, we can see lack of double coincidence of oneself. So problem of a common measurement of value and a loss due to subdivision of goods, difficulty in storages and everything. When by the passage of time, the money is coming, the all these difficulties will be or has been demolished, or has been vanished from the globe. When we come into the evolution and the kinds of money, money can be classified as common money and bank money. Common money, we deal with the coins. For example, this type of coins. You might have seen or you might have taken, or now the time you may have this type of coins. And the currency notes. In the currency notes. Okay. Okay. Coins, it may be a full-bodied coin, or it may be the token. It may be the token. Currency notes may be a representative paper notes, or the fiat money. And the other classification of money is checks, classification of money is bank money. That means checks and drafts. Checks and drafts. Okay. Before issuing the check, we have to ensure proper balance in our bank accounts. Otherwise, we cannot issue check. If you are doing so, then your check will be dishonored and you will be prosecuted for such offenses. And another one is another classification of bank money is draft. Okay, we can issue a demand draft in favor of another person. So before issuing draft, we have to keep a proper balance in our bank accounts. Otherwise, we cannot issue bank draft or demand draft. Then, during early the part of civilization, money was in the form of commodity. Money like the cow, sheep, wheat, rice, tobacco, tiger, teeth, elephant, etc. The particular commodity chosen as money depended upon various factors like the climate or the level of cultural and economic development of the community. In cold countries like Alaska and Siberia, animal skins and furs were used as money because they are they have enough for plenty of this type of animals. When we come into tropical countries, they used elephant tusks and tiger jaws as money. At the same time, in the agricultural communities like India, they used domestic animals and goods of daily use as the part of or in the form of money. However, with the passage of time, their use as money was given up due to lack of their durability, absence of a standard form, etc. The present day money has also passed through three stages: metallic money, representative paper money, and credit money. The present inconvertible paper currency, this is inconvertible paper currency, and other credit instruments acting as substitutes for legal money are only a recent development. With the progress of civilization and economic advancement of societies, metallic coins made of gold, silver, copper, etc. Okay, this is the mixture of silver and nickel. Okay, yes. Then, when we come into metallic coins, they may be standard coins or full-bodied coins. Okay. Then token coins. Okay. Token coins. Okay. Standard coins or full-bodied coins means their face value and intrinsic value were the same. Face value. This is the coin of 10 rupees. This is the coin of 10 rupees. Okay. Its intrinsic value, I think it may be 12 rupees or 13 rupees maybe. Okay. Yes. So it may be it is a token coin. It is a token coin. When coins face value and intrinsic value are the same, then such a coin can be called as standard coins. Standard coins or full-bodied coins. At the same time, those coins, its face value was much higher than its intrinsic value. Much higher than its intrinsic value. It is called token coins. It is called token coins. Okay. In our India, we might have seen maximum of 10 rupees. Sometimes I think some paper news or some social media news in India, 100 rupees coins is also available. I don't know whether it is issued or whether it is prevailing or not. Okay, kindly. Okay, you can search for further information. Okay. So when we would like to carry out a huge amount of transactions. We cannot carry with this type of coins because it creates a lot of issues because it creates issue of carrying cost and something like issues that in order to recover or in order to remove this type of interest, currency notes are introduced in our country or around the world. Okay, this is the history of currency. Then next we can move with the definition or the meaning of money. According to A.C. Pigou, he is one of the famous economists. In order for anything to be classed as money, it must be accepted fairly widely as an instrument of exchange. He given the definition for money. When we come into the words of G.D.H. Cole, money is anything that is habitually and widely used as a means of payment and is generally acceptable in the settlement of debt. Okay. And the famous definition for money is, it is given by Mr. Walker. Money is what money does. പണം എന്താണോ ചെയ്യുന്നത് അതാണ് പണം. Okay. Yes, it is a famous definition. Okay. Then in your material, you can see lot of definitions are there. You can study or you can pick out any one or two or three definitions. Okay. Yes. After analyzing a lot of definitions, we can derive some more points. Money may be anything, even it is a paper of, it is a piece of paper. It is a piece of paper. Yeah, it is a piece of paper. Okay. Then it is widely accepted for payment, for the payment of goods and services. It should be acceptable without references. Okay, because I would like to buy a pen and I want to give this amount. In order to receive this note, nobody should be forced to the recipient to receive this money, to receive this money. This is one of the feature of money because okay, it is tendered by the Reserve Bank of India. That means the Central Bank of India. Okay, money is received a customer. Okay, yes. Then next, near money. There are certain assets which are highly liquid, though not preferably liquid like money. These assets can easily be converted into money without much loss of time or value. Therefore, they are known as near money. Okay. The major examples for near money are bill of exchange, bonds, savings certificate, treasury bills, debentures, etc. Okay, fine. Okay. Next, nature of money. Money is only a means and not an end in itself. It is demanded not for its own sake, but because it helps us in buying goods and services to satisfy our wants. Money cannot be directly satisfy human wants, but it assists the human beings in production and exchange of goods and services. Its significance lies in its ability to command goods and services and liquidate business obligations. This is the feature of money. It does not fulfill the needs or wants of human beings directly, but it assists. It assists. When we want a cup of tea, okay, we can give 20 rupees or 10 rupees to consume such a tea or coffee or anything like that. Okay, so we cannot eat money. Can we eat money? No, it is a foolish practice. When we eat money, it is a foolish practice. Okay, if we find out such a person, when we catch the person or we hold the person and take him to nearby mental hospital. Okay, fine. So the money directly or the money cannot directly satisfy the human being, but it assists through giving, receiving. Okay, yes. Then next, what are the functions of money? The functions of money can be classified as three: primary function, secondary function, and a contingent function. When we move to the primary functions of money, we can see the medium of exchange. It can be, the money can be used as, or it act as a medium of exchange, and it is a measure of value. Okay. And the secondary function, when we come into the secondary function, okay, it can be used for standard deferred payments, and it can be used for a store of value, and it can be used for a store of, sorry, transfer of value. When moving to the contingent functions, it is the basis of a credit system. It helps in the distribution of national income. It helps in maximization of utility as well as of profit. It imparts liquidity to wealth. Okay. These are the contingent function of money. Next thing, what is the significance of money? Significance of money is in its consumption. Nowadays, people receive their incomes in terms of money. This facilitates in exercising free choice of consumption. Okay, somebody, it can be used for purchases. Somebody, it can be used for a repayment of loans, then payment of hostel fees, school fees, for buying of books, for buying of tea, for buying of coffee, and anything like that. Okay, then next is, it is significated in the area of production. That means money is not a factor of production, but it facilitates the production function. How it facilitates the production function? Through, it can be used for the payment of purchasing raw materials, for the payment of salary, okay, for the payment of interest, and for the distribution of profit, everything like that. Okay. Next, it significates, see, it significates in the area of trade. That means trade means buying and selling of goods and services. So money acted as a medium of exchange in the area of trade. Okay, yes. Then fourth one is significance of money and economic progress. This points reveals that introduction of money has led to the emergence of large-scale production, resulting in constant urge to accumulate capital and develop new techniques of production. So, the role of money in encouraging material progress is significant. Next importance is the usage of money in public finance. As we know, government require a lot of amount for the welfare of the state, for committing some public expenditures. So the government require resources to run the administration smoothly, for which they levy tax and also charge fees, fines, etc. Without money, how we can collect tax? How we can levy tax? Okay, can we collect a tax in the form of goods and services? No, it is possible. Okay, yes. Next, money and foreign trade. Okay, foreign trade means the selling of goods and services with the rest of the world. That is called the foreign trade or international trade. Money has helped us in the expansion of foreign trade and thereby raise the level of consumption the world over. It is because with the help of money, we can transact not only those goods which are produced domestically, but also those which are produced by other countries. For the purpose of export, or in case of import, or in case of entry port, everything, the value should be determined in terms of money or in terms of price. Okay, in terms of price, but we have to significantly dominate its money. Okay, this is about, or these are about the significance of money. And next, what are the evils of money? Invention of money has not proved to be an unmixed blessings, as its use has become a source of so many evils too. Okay, we can see everything has its own merits and demerits. Okay, likewise, in case of money also, we can see some evils or some constraints. Okay, so we can deal with what are the evils of money. Some of the evil effects of money are First one is economic defects. Okay. That means sometimes money can be accessed as a can be used for our greedy purpose and exploitation of poor people. Okay, which results in the greater inequalities in the society. That means it raises the gap between haves and have-nots. This is one of the economic effects. And the second one is money helps in extending the scale of production, which after certain limits may result in a situation where production far exceeds the demand. This leads to fall in level of prices, unemployment, stagnation, decline in incomes, and thereby misery for the masses. This is the second economic difference. The third one is by facilitating borrowing and lending, money may encourage overcapitalization. Overcapitalization means a firm procures the amount what it has actually repaid. This leads to mismanagement of the organization, and further it will result in the collapse of or winding up of such a type of organizations. And the fourth economic defect is when a government or a central bank increases the supply of money by simply printing new notes, it leads to sharp rise in prices. Moreover, it will directly affects or it will adversely affects the purchasing power of fixed income groups in the society, and it may result in class conflicts and social disorder. Okay, these are the 4 points that belongs to the economic evils of money. Next, when we come to the social defects of money, money has encouraged many kinds of anti-social activities like gambling, fraud, robbery, etc. And nowadays we can see the elements of or the presence of greedy and extravagancy. Okay. Then third one is it encourages tendencies of exploiting others. Exploiting others. Perhaps money has lot of limitations. We cannot live money in our today's world. It is a proved fact. It is a 100%. It is a 10% proved fact, right? Yes. Okay. This is about the first unit. These are the terms explained in first unit. Then you can read and ask any doubts when you have any questions or queries. Okay. So we move to the second unit. Demand for and supply of money. Demand for money and supply of money. In the previous unit, we clearly understood what is money, what is its nature, what is its significance, and what are the evils of the money. Okay. So, despite of all the economics, all the evils, despite of all the evils of money, we use money for as a medium of exchange, as a unit of measurement, and a standard of deferred payment, and a store of value. But the fundamental reason why money can be saved for these functions. Okay. Yes. This is a question leads to this chapter. That means demand for and supply of money. Actually, money is a stock variable. Money is a stock variable. The money stock is the quantity of money at a point of time. Money is a stock variable. Okay. Now the time I have 30 rupees, 20 rupees of currency notes and 10 rupee coin. Stock variable. Okay. It may be upward. Okay. The storing value or the money accumulating in my hand may be increased or decreased. Okay. Now 20 plus 10 rupee coin. When I use this coin to purchase a pen, my storing of money value will become 30 to, well, will be from 30 to 20 rupees. So at a point of time, okay, now the time is 2:40. At a point of time, I have 30 rupees. Okay. By 4 o'clock or by 5 o'clock, my money storing of money or the money in my hand or cash in my hand may be 10 rupees or 30 rupees or 50 rupees. Okay, something like that. Okay. Yes. As an asset, money is demanded because public decides to hold it. The motive for holding money and the time period for which it is held, of course, may differ from individual to individual. Somebody may keep the money for a long time. Somebody may be, it may be kept for a short time. Okay. So from person to person or from individual to individual or from organization to organization, the time period or the holding of money, it may be fairly different. Okay. A person may hold cash for spending on goods and services, right? He may also demand money for holding it, that is keeping idle cash. So demand for money in an economy is thus the sum total of money demanded by all individuals or households in that economy. That means in India, as we know, we have around 1.3 million people or 1.5 million people. No, 1.3 million or 1.32 million people in India now. Okay. So demand for money means the sum total of all money, the sum total of all money, the sum total of all money demanded by all people or all households in our country. Okay. So the theory of demand for money addresses itself for the following two fundamental questions. First one is, why does an individual or household want money? Second one is, what are the main determinants of demand of money? So theories for demand for money. First one is the classical approach of money. Okay. This theory is propounded by economists like J.S. Mill and Irving Fisher. According to them, people demand money because every individual and business firm gets money by selling goods and services, and in turn use this money for the purchase of goods and services produced by others. So everybody keep money for the purchase of goods and services to consume, and in turn they give the money, or in turn they use this money for purchasing goods and service in order to produce these goods and services. This is a theory propounded, or this is the fact explained or mentioned in the classical approach. And the next theory is the neoclassical theory. Okay. It is propounded by Alfred Marshall and A.C. Pigou. Okay. They are called as a Cambridge economists. So this method or this theory is called a Cambridge equation approach. According to this theory, a proportionate relationship exists between the demand for money and the money value of national output. So demand for money function can be calculated as MD. MD means demand for money is equal to national output. National KY, national. Y denotes national output. K is the constant factor, which lies the value between 0 to 1. 0 to 1. Okay, yes. The third theory is Keynesian theory. John Maynard Keynes. He is one of the famous modern economists originated in America, and his famous book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, he illustrates the demand for money. Keynes raised his viewpoints firstly with the two questions. Why is money a demand? And what influence the demand for money? Despite of these questions, he narrated his viewpoints for these questions, and he illustrates that money in hand does not earn any income. On the other hand, there are always certain competing non-money assets, which give some returns to their holders. So this fact maybe leads to holding of money, and this is one of the or this may be the this may be one of the factor, or this may be the factors to hold the money. Okay. According to his theory, the motives for demand of money or the determinants of demand money can be classified as the transaction motive and the precautionary motive and the speculative motive. We can discuss or we can study each one step by step. Okay. Yes. The transaction motive means the type of receiving money and the time of incurring. The time of incurring expenditure by an individual of firm generated to coincide. In order to meet the needs of transactions during this gap period, money is kept aside. Okay, this is called a transaction motive. That means the time gap between occurring an expenditure and receiving money. Okay, that may not be parallel, or the gap may be wide or may be rigid. So, in order to meet this incidence, the people may hold the money. This is the transaction motive. Okay, and the next one is precautionary motive. Precautionary motive means the level of income from person to person or from firm to firm may be different. Some firm or some firm may be some may be dealt with huge amount of sales, huge amount of purchases, etc. At the same time, some firm may be dealt with low sales receipts or low purchases, etc. Okay. So precautionary motive means, or precautionary demand for money, okay, is not influenced not only by the level of income, but also the factors like political situations and the business conditions prevailing in the country. As we know, business situation is always uncertain. So, so in the particular moment, we cannot expect all the things what we have to face in the future, or what are the what will happen in nearby future. We cannot expect, or we cannot estimate, or we cannot tell in a particular moment. So we hold the money for this type of contingencies. This is the precautionary motive. And the last one is speculative motive. Speculative motive means a person who hold the money for speculation. Speculation. That means a person who keep money to purchase some assets, and he expects some gaining or some appreciation in the asset while transferring it, or when the price of such asset increasing in the market. Okay, this is the speculative motive. Okay, in your material, lot of diagrams and equations are given. Okay, you can clearly read the. Okay, you know it. I think diagrams. Okay. Then what is meant by supply of money? Supply of money means the volume of money held by the households and firms for the transactions and the settlement of debts, or the quantum of money available in the simply supply of money means the quantum of money available in the market. Okay. Supply of money at any point of time consists of currency, net demand deposits, other deposits with the Reserve Bank of India. Okay. Next, what are the agencies influencing money supply? As we know, Central Bank of our country and our commercial banks, they are the major agencies influencing money supply. Okay. And how commercial banks influence supply money. That means commercial bank act as a liaison between public and central bank. They grant loans and advances from Central Bank of India or Reserve Bank of India, and they distribute this amount among the public. On the other hand, they pools deposits from public and kept a small portion of it in the bank, and the remaining amount they can be distributed as loans to public as well as to Central Bank of India. Okay. Next is the velocity of money. Velocity of money means, or the velocity of money is used to find out the money value of total transactions during a given period. The money value of total transactions during a given period. That means now I have 20 rupees. Okay. Within a 1 hour, within 2 hours, how much transactions can be made with this 20 rupees? This is called the velocity. This is called the velocity. Okay. This is about in your second chapter. And the third unit is money and price. When we started with this discussion, we started the two terms, money, exchange value, price. So we can clearly express these terms. The value of money differs from the value of other objects in one fundamental aspect. That is, the value of money represents general purchasing power or command over things in general. Okay. Okay. The basic part of this chapter does not be required. We require this. Okay. Because last 2 years or 3 years, no questions are asking from this area. Okay, so we can skip this area. Okay, then we start with the Einstein's theory of money and price. As we know, the quantity of theory of money states that any change in the quantity of money produces a proportionate change in the same direction in the general level of prices. Or in other words, the value of money is a function of supply of money, such that when the supply of money is doubled, its value is halved and vice versa. This conclusion is based on the assumption that full employment given the aggregate output. So the causal relationship between the supply of money and the level of prices constitutes the core of the quantity theory of. But this relationship is not so simple and direct as the classical economists make us believe. So the Keynes criticized the classical approach which regarded money as neutral, that is having no influence on equilibrium of the real sector of the money. When we look into the classical theory stated that money aimed at the stationary equilibrium, while Keynes was largely concerned with developing a theory of the shifting equilibrium, wherein changing views about the future also influence the present situation. Okay, he denies any direct causal relation between increases in the quantity of money and the rise in the levels of prices, so long as there are unemployed resources in the system. According to Keynes, an increase in the quantity of money increases the amount of money available for satisfying the liquidity needs for fulfilling the speculative motive. Right. Okay. So change in the quantity of money leads to change in the rate of interest. it will leads to the change in investment, and it will leads to the change in output and employment, and it will result in change in cost of production, and it will finally result in change in prices. This is about the next unit is about the inflation. As we know, inflation, rise in prices. Okay. Nowadays, we are living in the area of huge amount of inflation occurring in our country. Basically, it is related with the petroleum prices. If the prices of petroleum products are increasing day by day, it will directly reflect in our goods and services. Okay. So we cannot avoid the influence of inflation in our day-to-day life. So we have to understand what is inflation, what are its basic terminologies, and how influence our daily life, or that means how inflation influence the price of goods and services. Yes. Okay. In the earlier years, only the underdeveloped economies of the world faced the serious problem of persistent price rise, that is inflation. But lately, even the developed countries have fallen victim to this problem. So we have to understand, as I already mentioned about this. According to the famous economist Pico, inflation takes place when money income is expanding relatively to the output of work done by the productive agents for which it is the payment. That means the views of Pico, he states that inflation will take place only when money income is expanding relative to the output of work done by the productive agents for which it is the payment. At another place, he says that inflation exists when money income is expanding more than in proportion to income earning capacity. That means our income earning capacity is reducing and the money income is expanding. Money income is expanding. So we can ensure the presence of inflation. So we can ensure we can estimate or expect the presence of inflation. Okay. According to R.C. Hawtrey, inflation, in the views of him, inflation is the issue of too much currency. Issue of too much currency. Whereas in the views of T.E. Gregory, he says that inflation is abnormal increase in the quantity of purchasing power. Abnormal increase in the quantity of purchasing power. Okay. So in a common parlance, inflation means rising price of goods and services, and it reflects in the diminishing value. It reflects the value of purchasing power. That means inflation reduces the value of purchasing power of a currency. Okay. Yes. In the words of Keynes, inflation is caused by an excess of effective demand, and the state of true inflation begins only after the level of full employment, and the employment will change in the same proportion as the quantity of money. And when there is full employment, prices will change in the same proportion as the quantity of money. And he believes that we do not unduly fear inflation, because as long as there are unemployed human and material resources, right? So an increase in the quantity of money will go to increase employment. After the full employment, all increases in money supply will increase the price level. Will increase the price level. Okay. As a part of it, he introduced, that means Keynes introduced a new concept called inflationary gap. Inflationary gap. Inflationary gap shows a situation in the economy when anticipated expenditures, not actual expenditures. Okay, anticipated expenditures. That means it may be a demand or it may be an anticipated expenditures. Exceeds the available output at the base prices or at the pre-inflation prices. So he defined that the inflationary gap shows a situation in the economy when anticipated expenditures or the anticipated demand exceeds the available supply. That means now, for example, the available supply is 100 units and the anticipated demand may be or 120 or 110. Okay, which creates the inflationary gap. Because when the supply is less than the demand, definitely the price of the goods will be increased. Okay, this is the fact. Okay, so inflationary gap will arise, nothing more than that. Okay. Next, what are the types of inflation? Okay. Or the classification of inflation. Firstly, classification based on the degree of price rise. First one is creeping inflation, and the second one is walking inflation, and the third one is running inflation. And the final one is jumping, galloping, or hyperinflation. Okay, creeping inflation means it is the one of the most mild form of inflation. Okay, and we have to note that some economists do not consider it is a serious or a danger for the economy. Okay, okay. In fact, what is creeping inflation? Okay, creeping inflation means it is an inflationary situation in which the national economy free from the effects of stagnation. That means it is a situation where there is a mild inflation. There is a mild, once a more small inflation may ultimately become hyperinflation. May become hyperinflation. That means an economy, there is a mild inflation. There is a mild inflation. But after a particular time, it may become a hyperinflation. And this type of mild inflation free from the economy from stagnation, from the effects of stagnation. This type of inflation is called creeping inflation. Creeping inflation. Right? Next one is walking inflation. Walking inflation means it is a situation where the rise in prices becomes more marked as compared with the situation obtaining under keeping inflation. That means when the price of the commodity in the economy is 5 rupees, when creeping inflation is reported, at the same time, the price of the commodity is increasing day by day. Okay, this is the walking inflation. Inflation is hiring. Okay, is increasing day by day. The price of the goods is increasing day by day. This is the very dangerous situation for the economy. Okay. Next one is running inflation. Running inflation means the price of the goods and services is increasing day by day very rapidly, or doubling or tripling. Okay, the price of the goods or the price of the commodities is increasing day by day very rapidly. This is called a running inflation. This is called a running inflation. It is very dangerous for the economy. It is very dangerous to the economy. The last one is galloping, jumping, or hyperinflation. Galloping, jumping, or hyperinflation. Okay. In hyper or galloping inflation, prices rise every moment, and there is no limit to the height to which the prices might rise. That means we cannot expect how much amount of price of the goods will be increased. There is no ceiling limit. There is no ceiling limit up to which the prices are increasing. We cannot expect. Okay. If the price of the commodity is increasing, we cannot estimate how much amount or how what will be the quantum of the limit in up to which the price is increased. Okay, this is called a hyper or a galloping inflation. Okay, yes. So, in a hyper or galloping inflation, all assets having a fixed income lose their real value. The best examples of such assets and incomes provided by salaries, savings, mortgages, insurance policies, etc. Okay, this is about the classification of inflation on the basis of degree of price rise. And the other classification is based on the processes. Okay. On the processes based classification of inflation, we can classify the inflation as three. First one is deficit induced inflation, and the second one is wage induced inflation, and the final one is profit induced inflation. First one is deficit induced inflation. Okay, this is caused by deficit financing. That means the government spends more expenditures or more that means the government expenditure is more than its revenue. That means government spends 100 crores of rupees, but the revenue income is 40 crore or 50 crore, 60 crore. That means less than the actual revenue. Okay, so inflation is caused by this type of practices is called a deficit induced inflation. And the another one is wage induced inflation. Okay, when the wages or salary offered by companies in a country are, that means the wages offered by companies in a country are higher rather than other countries, it may create wage induced inflation. Wage induced inflation. And the last one is profit induced inflation. Okay, this inflation occurs as a means of the entrepreneurs or the manufacturers, they are much greedy. That means they would like to take a major part, or they would like to get back, or they would like to get back a huge amount of profit from the articles produced. This may create in the say yes, higher prices for that. The selling price may be inflated with this type of practices, and this creates inflation in the economy. This is called profit induced inflation. Okay. And the last type is demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. That means when we come into demand pull inflation, it means that when the aggregate demand exceeds the level of full employment output, it is called demand full inflation. Demand full inflation. It is also called excess demand inflation. Excess demand inflation. Okay. When we compare it to Kerala as compared with India, in Kerala there is a demand full inflation. Okay, higher wages is available, higher amount of spending is, everything is okay. Yes, Indian level is the inflation is also higher, along with the money is also higher. Okay, next is cost push inflation. Cost push inflation is also called new inflation. That means because of based on the viewpoints of Keynes. Keynes. Okay. That means cost push inflation means raising money wages, but there is no productivity increases. There is no productivity increases. It is called a cost push inflation. This is about inflation. And what are the effects of inflation? First one is effects on production. If inflation is increasing day by day, it will definitely affect our production purposes, because the demand of the products will be fell down, and the selling price of the product will be in a peak position, and nobody can away or consume this type of products. It will finally reflect the fell downing of or wanting of or demolishing of industries in our country. Next one is effects on distribution. Okay, it wides the gap between haves and have-nots. Okay, third one is debtors and creditors. Okay, if the inflation in a country is going in a, or it shows a poor trend in economy, debtors they resort to grant more credit from creditors, and their burden on account of this type of liability is increasing day by day. On the other hand, creditors are forced to grant more time to their debtors in order to get back the money they have lent to debtors. Okay, and the entrepreneurs. Sometimes they may not be expected fair rate of return for their effort or for their capital investment. Investors also lose their investments. Okay, then farmers they may not get adequate price for their agricultural yields. Wage earners may not get adequate remuneration, or their real income may be decreased due to huge amount they have to, or they are forced to spend more amounts to consume goods and services. Middle class and salary persons, their life will be hardest. Okay. Then, control of inflation. We can control inflation by two methods: monetary measures and physical measures. Okay. Next, we can move to banking. As we know, bank is a financial institution which deals with depositors and lenders. It is a liaison between creditor and debtor. Yeah. Yes. Commercial banks play an important role in the economic development of any country. Okay. Evolution of bank. Okay. In India, money lending developed as an occupation from 500 BC 500. But the first modern bank was set up in 1688 in Madras. Agency houses. It is called the agency house, started by British government of India, and for the purpose of establishing joint stock banks in India. Okay, in 1770, in the state of or in the place of Calcutta, there is a bank called Bank of Hindustan was established, and the General Bank of India was established in 1786. Three presidency banks, Bank of Calcutta, Bank of Bombay, and the Bank of Madras were established in the consecutive years. And these banks subsequently merged as Imperial Bank of India in 1921, and it is nationalized in 1955, and it is named as a State Bank of India. Now, State Bank of India is the largest nationalized bank in India. Okay, next is structure of banks. First one is branch banking. Branch banking means a banking system in which two or more banking offices are operated under a single ownership and management as a single institution. Okay, this is the branch bank. Every bank is dealing with the mobilization of savings, efficiency in management, large scale business operations, diversification of deposits and advances, economy interest of remittance facilities, and uniform interest rates. At the same time, branch banking suffers from difficulty in management, retention, weaker branches, controlled competition, less personal contacts and familiarity with the local conditions, utilization of funds, monopoly of power. Another structure is, or another form of banking is unity banking. Unity banking means a system of banking in which banking operations are carried on through a single office rather than a through of network of branches. Okay, there is only one branch, there is only one bank. It performs all the functions. This is the single bank. When we look into single bank unity banking system, we can see it can meet a lot of local needs. Okay, then there is less possibilities of mismanagement. They are free from this economies of operations. Then possibilities of delaying operations due to absence are remote because there is a single branch. Then funds are used only within geographical area of operations. But at the same time, it suffers from some limitations. First one is it cannot mobilize a huge amount as a savings. Okay, and another one is due to small size operation, it cannot enjoy the large scale operations. And the cost of establishment per unit is high in case of unit. Then sometimes it may not cope up with the stiff competition in the market. Okay, then it cannot cater all the needs of all the sectors of the society. Next one is group banking. Group banking means the ownership and operation of two or more banks directly or indirectly by a corporation. Okay, this. So normally this type of banks is controlled by a holding company. Okay, and then another one is chain banking. Chain banking is one of the form of a group banking. Okay, it is quite. I think it is quite different to differentiate how chain banking is different from group banking. Okay. Even though chain banking refers to a system where two or more banks are controlled by a single person or group of persons through stock ownership or otherwise. Then next, what are the functions of commercial banks? Okay, as we know, banker is one who in the ordinary course of business owners who checks or drawings of by. Okay, then the functions of a bank can be classified as primary functions. Primary function means a collection of deposits. So normally we have four types of deposits: fixed deposits, savings bank deposits, current account deposits, and recurring deposits. Okay, then loans and advances. That means granting of loans and advances is the second primary function. So the loans can be classified as overdraft, cash credit, then direct loans, term loans, then loans to agriculture and allied activities, and the loan for export import trade. Okay, and the secondary function of a bank is agency services and public utility services. When we come into the agency services of a bank, we can see the collection of checks or promissory notes, bills, then payment of insurance premium, rent, taxes, electricity bills, in accordance with the standing instructions issued by deposit holder, then sale and purchase of securities on behalf of a customer, then trustee, executor, and attorney functions, then bank act as a correspondent of the agent. All these, when the bank carry out all these functions or any of these functions, the bank will charge a nominal fee for this type of function from the deposit holder's account. And general utility services. General utility services will include issuing of letter of credit, then issue of demand draft, then underwriting functions, then guarantee for deferred payments, then providing of locker facility, and the bank serve as a referee to the financial standing and the business and the statistical information. These are about the functions of banks. Next, we have to study what are the significance or economic significance of bank. As we know, bank plays a vital role in the economic development of every country, whether it is a least country or an underdeveloped country or a least developed country or a developed country. Okay. Yes. Bank facilitates the development of trade and industry through granting of loans and advances and everything. Moreover, bank facilitates the development of agriculture sector also, because we know that a lot of agriculture loans are there, but it's a very cheap rate of interest. And the bank facilitates the development of service sector. It contributes for the balanced growth of the country, and it encourages for the international trade. Okay, through the supplying of funds for the exporters and importers, and it also provides some social services as a part of their CSR responsibilities. Next is creation of credit. Before going to this topic, we have to clearly understand what are the concepts behind the creation of credit. And the first one is principle of portfolio management. Portfolio means to manage the assets and liabilities in such a way that profits can be increased to maximum and the expenses can be reduced to minimum. Okay, so the principles means profitability, safety, and liquidity. Liquidity, profitability, and safety. When we grant a loan, the loan must be most liquid. And the second one is the loan must be, or the activity must be a profitable one. And the third one is it must be a safest one. Credit creation means when a bank receives deposits from a person, okay, it is called a primary deposit. This money can be retained by bank as a reserve. Then from this deposit amount so received, the bank has to keep a certain nominal amount as a reserve in accordance with the rules framed by Reserve Bank of India. After the keeping the money as a reserve, the balance amount can be utilized for giving loans and advances.